Give me a thumbs up for liberty. Okay, we treasure our right to free speech, especially those up here. Back in the day, people would say, I may not agree with what you say, but I would defend your right to say it. Whenever people try to silence you, you can assert your right to free speech without having to prove your right. We tolerate people who may say objectionable things because we expect to be tolerated. You have a freedom you cherish. It may not be the same freedom that the person sitting next to you cherishes. Together, though, we can be stronger if we turn to each other and say, I may not agree with what you do, but I respect your right to do it. But what if what a person does violates your liberty? Well, that's why we still need government. We need government to protect our rights. But what are our rights? This must be clarified to determine exactly what the government should and should not be doing. Some people would think rights are privileges guaranteed by the government, but this is an arbitrary notion that, if accepted, gives no more consistency or security than the shifting of sands on the seashore. I support a more solid foundation, a standard that one may apply to a variety of circumstances with consistency. I suggest that our rights are that which you have unless somebody takes them away. The first thing we have is our own lives. In our lives, we make choices, and those choices can result in the accumulation of property. Our Declaration of Independence describes rights as self-evident and inalienable, or unalienable. But what about our rights to health care, education, food, or housing? Well, unless one produces those goods or services on one's own, someone else provides them. Free people may choose to trade for mutual benefit. Free people may choose to give out of charity. But goods and services are not rights. They are gifts or they are earned. To call them rights and demand them without this understanding is to assert a right to enslave. If you say you have a right to health care, you are making physicians your slaves. If you say you have a right to food, you're making the farmers your slaves. And if you say you're going to pay them with someone else's money, you're making the people you take the money from your slaves. There could be no right to enslave because this is a denial of the rights of others. But we no longer have a government that protects our rights. Most politicians have been speaking to your inner tyrant and getting you to neglect the liberties of your neighbor in exchange for protecting the liberties you value. This problem is your neighbor's been playing the same game. If you hear a voice in your head saying, there ought to be a law, stop and ask yourself if that law would respect the rights of others to live for their own sake. You create wealth with your mind and your labor. And whatever you get by voluntary, honest exchange is an extension of your life. If that law takes your property, it violates your past. If it denies your peaceful choices, it violates your present. And if it causes your death, it violates your future. Current laws pillage our past, present, and future. And I wish to change that. I'm Scotty Bowman. Find out more at bowman12.org. B-O-M-A-N, no W.
It used to be a universally held value and belief by Americans. In fact, it was a Democratic President, John F. Kennedy, who said in his inaugural address that our rights come from God, not from government. And I think we need to return to those founding Judeo-Christian principles by which we were not only an economic powerhouse, but a force for moral good around the world through the first 80% of the years of our existence. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for your opening statements. As we get into the questions, we'll be happy to repeat a question if you need it. Otherwise, we won't unless requested to do so. The first question is from Mr. Glenn. And again, we're going left to right from the audience's perspective. The interpretation of the U.S. Constitution as amended has been changed over the years due to human error, activist judges, and the recent acceptance of foreign precedents. Some have suggested amending it. Others are looking for ways to restore it to its original intent. What active role are you willing to play in any of this after you are sworn in to defend and uphold the Constitution of the United States? It's a 1-minute answer, please.
1 minute, Bill. As a senator, you get a title in front of your name, you get a bully pulpit, they put you on Fox News every week. So you can have the opportunity to preach correct principles. And both Jefferson and Lincoln warned us that if we ever got to the point where only 5 members of the United States Supreme Court had ultimate and unassailable authority to say what is and is not constitutional, that we would have lost our constitutional freedoms. So as a United States Senator, I would, as Jefferson and Lincoln said, believe that I was equally authorized by the Constitution as part of the legislative branch to independently judge what I thought to be constitutional and unconstitutional. If necessary, I would support at the federal level, as I do here at the state level, legislation, maybe even an amendment, to prohibit the United States Supreme Court from any of its decisions citing foreign law, including Sharia law, in any of its decisions. They swore an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States, not what any other country decided, and if they don't, we ought to impeach them.
I think the most important thing that a United States Senator can do in the role of confirming judges, I would seek to be on the Senate Judiciary Committee, because I don't think one judge should pass through our gates unless he or she commits ahead of time, after a full discussion, as to the meaning of this document of our Constitution of the United States. We have judges all across America who do not understand this document. The second thing that I would do is, I agree with Gary. I think, in point of fact, the bully pulpit of being a United States Senator will allow us to have a national debate. And that debate should not be limited by the boundaries of Michigan. It should be across our great land, so that even the school kids who come up in this next generation will understand that the blessings of freedom depend on the honoring of this document, our Constitution. And second, only American law applies in American courts.
I think the Constitution is the perfect document for governing a free people. It's not ambiguous. I don't think it's been changed by mistake or by evolution. I think it's being ignored actively by our representatives in Congress because they feel that it's inconvenient and it stops them from accumulating power. As I said before in my opening statement, I think that Article 1, Section 8 and Article 1, Section 9 are pivotal. They're very, very clear. It's incumbent upon Congress to honor those limitations. But just by human nature, they want power. So the Tea Party movement is such a great movement because we have to go through and make sure that we vote people out of office that abuse the Constitution. We get the government that we deserve, and we've allowed the people to do it. I know I've been pursuing my happiness over the last 35 years. I wasn't really involved in politics, and that's what we have to do. As far as the judges, if the judge rules on international law, if the judge rules against the Constitution, every single one of those judges swore to uphold the Constitution, and they should be either reversed or impeached.
I'd first like to thank Mr. Glenn for helping complete my opening statement. The reason there even is an office of United States Senate is because it is an office defined in the United States Constitution. Without the United States Constitution, I'm not a candidate, you're not a citizen of the United States of America, and the people in the Senate, including Debbie Stabenow, are not senators. So it is irrational and a contradiction for them to cherry pick which parts of the Constitution they wish to believe in. Absolutely, follow the Constitution, all personal feelings aside. If I happen to advocate a position on a law and someone could point out to me, Mr. Bowman, you missed this, that something's unconstitutional, I will vote against that because I know that's unconstitutional. I will only approve judges that understand the Constitution, and I will not sign on to a treaty that violates the Constitution.